Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Wall of Power TV. I'm your host, Paul Metsa. Tonight, we will be going back in the time machine to discuss the storied history of First Avenue, in my estimation, the greatest rock and roll club in the universe. My guest, Chris Riemenschneider, is a music critic at the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. He has written a phenomenal new book about the club, First Avenue, Minnesota's Main Room. There's so much I want to talk to you about, Chris, and I really appreciate your time tonight. But you mentioned the Lilith Fair, and the one thing I think that First Avenue has really been unique on is the number of women that have played important parts in that, and really for years, for decades, a really man-oriented industry.
Yeah, no, and that's still true to this day, actually. Right from the get-go of when the transformation from Uncle Sam's to First Avenue, which is when about 2-year stretch there where the club transferred from a disco club to the rock club that it is, which it started out as a rock club, as a depot.
Right.
But Chrissy Dunlop she went to work there at the end of 1979, right as the entry's about to open, and she was McClellan's right-hand woman, shall we say. She was really integral to the booking there, and just the overall attitude of treating musicians well and everything. Mid-'80s, Maggie McPherson, she was kind of the Conrad of the day. She ran the place, and I mean, can you imagine? And Maggie's a badass.
Yeah.
You know, and so her to deal with.
Well, tell us a little bit about that Jimmy Reed show. Show how badass she is.
That was actually Chrissy. That's
Chrissy.
That's
Okay.
Chrissy. Yeah.
Okay.
Chrissy Dunlop, to exemplify how cool she is. Age 14, she faked a note from her parents and somehow talked her way into seeing Jimmy Reed at the Marigold Ballroom.
Wow.
I mean, I saw Anthrax when I was 14. She saw Jimmy Reed.
Right,
Who's cooler,
right.
Who's cooler there?
And
now we have Sonia Grover she's the main booker there. She's,
and Molly,
integral.
who was Molly?
Molly was Molly McManus was a key. She was a kind of the floor front of house manager through the 90s, and she, those women put up with a lot of crap.
Oh yeah,
a lot of crap, and
a lot of great female bartenders down there.
Yeah. No, it's
door people.
That's one of the things that made it great. It's always been
very equal opportunity.
Yeah.
But if you played there, they treated you like a king or queen. You felt like gold. I remember when I played there, Maggie was working. She walked me through the club, got me to where I was supposed to go. And Conrad wasn't there yet, but the sound guys were amazing.
Yeah.
And I've talked to several of the people that have played there, friends of mine, like Dan Israel, for example. And we would talk about, you'd stand behind that curtain before it rose, and you felt like the Beatles their first time on Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
It was just
No,
pure adrenaline, but beautiful magic.
Yeah.
The sound guys, the tech guys, the women that work there. I think one of the reasons why musicians love playing that club, touring musicians, is you got treated so well.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and musicians all the time. When I talk to them on the phone, if they haven't played First Avenue in 5 years, they're like, "How's First Avenue?" They love it. Mark Perlman of the Jayhawks has a great quote in here about, and of course they were kind of the hometown heroes, so of course they were going to be treated well, but he's talking with other musicians too of, there's this comfort level there. I mean, obviously aesthetically the place isn't that comfortable. There's not much to it.
Right.
But he says touring is a real hard, rugged thing. It's physically enduring. And somehow First Avenue, the people there, it just has that real comfort level that when you're on the road for 3 months out of the year, it's a big reason why the musicians love it.
I want to encourage everybody to go out and buy First Avenue, Minnesota's Main Room. Over 300 images of the whole almost 50-year history. Great stories about every chapter in the club. But tell us briefly, how did it open, and then the iterations of the different names of the club.
Yeah, and I had, honestly, even going into this, I wasn't quite clear on it. 1970, April 3rd, 1970 was the Joe Cocker opening as the Depot. It took the name, obviously, because it was the former Greyhound Depot. It had sat empty The new bus depot opened in about 68, so it sat empty for about 2 years. 1970 to the summer of 71 is when it ran as a depot. Booked amazing legendary acts. I mean, Ike and Tina, B.B. King, Iggy and the Stooges.
Right.
That blew my mind knowing that they played there. Couldn't make it. You know, and Alan Fingerhut was the owner of you know, an heir to the Fingerhut
Fortune.
catalog, yeah. So you know, he had deep pockets, but even with that, he had to shut it down, and that's actually, I said it's been running nonstop. It did shut down for about a year at that point. And then this company from Cincinnati named American Events was opening these disco clubs. And this is kind of pre-disco.
Right,
They were really
right.
on the, not necessarily something to brag about, you were ahead of the curve on disco, but they were opening these clubs in these blue-collar towns, Buffalo, New York, Houston, they had one in Davenport, Iowa, all those kind of towns.
When you wanted to get down at night.
Yeah, yeah. And they reopened it as Uncle Sam's in the summer of 1972, and it stayed that way until middle of 1979. And that's, at that point, Steve McClellan was the kind of the manager of Uncle Sam's, and he was like, you know, I think we can keep this going as something cooler. And he had to sell Alan Fingerhut on that, and him and Jack Myers they pulled it off, obviously. And they had some very lean years there. Actually, throughout the history of the club, it's up until 2004, they lost more money. That definitely was not a money-making venture. The Sam's, so it went from Uncle Sam's in 1979 to 2 years as Sam's, and that was sort of the transition. You know, that was them saying this isn't the old disco club, but they weren't quite ready to do what they were, you know, the final product. And then in 1982 on, it's been First Avenue.
It's almost like the Fenway Park of rock and roll.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
It's that cool.
Yeah, yeah, kind of structurally, it's kind of the same kind of feel as Fenway.
But
too,
Fenway
right?
Park doesn't have that cool tile.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly.
They do have the green wall, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've got Chris Riemenschneider on for the whole show on the Wall of Power TV. Great book, just loving it, called First Avenue, Minnesota's Mainroom. Any of your music-loving friends and family, here's your Christmas or birthday gift for them. Or if you really love them, just get it to them anyway. We'll be back after these messages. Thanks.
I want you to meet Two Gingers Irish Whiskey. I'm Kieran and I'm Irish, so I tend to like a challenge. Why not? I wanted a whiskey to help find me out what's out there. Like what's really out there. And I found the oldest distillery in Ireland with a water wheel and awards for its small family of whiskies in the middle of Ireland. As I've always seen it, you can't win the lottery unless you buy a ticket. So try it. The investment is small and the flavor is big. It's perfect for drinking neat. Its character holds up, like the Irish, when the bastards try to get you down. Two Gingers Irish Whiskey. Distilled twice for more character, time for more flavor, and less of the old burn. No lite bastardes carborundum. Don't let the bastards get you down.
What can you do with so much space? The Solar Arts Building in Northeast Minneapolis. A masterpiece of exposed brick, wooden beams, hardwood floors, and natural light, this unique multi-use space is perfect for a variety of events. To literally top it off, there are over 100 solar panels on the roof, making the Solar Arts Building self-sustainable. You've got the need, we've got the space. The Solar Arts Building, 711 Northeast 15th Avenue in beautiful Northeast Minneapolis. Give them a call at 763-234-5069 or send a message to mike@solarartsbuilding.com.
Hi, welcome back to Wall of Power TV. I'm your host, Paul Metsa. My guest for the whole show tonight, very intriguing guy named Chris Riemenschneider. Chris, I was, paging through it. I haven't had time to read the whole book, but the pages I've read, I've loved every one. But there's some great stuff there about Laurie Bar Barrel.
Yeah.
Babes in Toyland, right?
Yeah.
So they're just getting started. She doesn't know the drums well enough to how to take them apart and put them back together. So she's literally carrying a bass drum with a snare and cymbals, not realizing that you can actually take these apart piece by piece.
Well, yeah, she just was afraid she didn't know how to put them back together.
Right, right.
Yeah, and you know, it was more about their raw power, and God, they had power. They still have it, actually. They just played the Mainroom a few months ago. Just one of the best shows I'd seen by them. Really great.
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
Laurie, I don't know if you saw, Laurie has the picture of Bob Dylan in the entry.
Right, let's talk about that. That's
Yeah,
and a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, he had a blue Hawaiian shirt, and he came to see the Alley Cats, kind of a pseudo Stray Cats.
Right, rockabilly thing.
Yeah, you know, he was, you know, everyone's Bob Dylan's here, and Laurie goes up with the camera and snaps a picture and quick runs away, and she got it. God love her for proof. He had been hanging out there since the Depot era. There's a story the night Zappa played with the Burrito Brothers opening up.
Wow.
Jeez, yeah. I mean, and Bob was there, and in the garage behind the club, one of the employees at the time was parked back there and had to kick Bob. Bob Dylan was sitting on the bumper of his Jeep, and it's like, sorry, Bob, I gotta go. You know, talking with the Burrito Brothers or whatever. So he had been showing up there, and they had him booked. He was playing smaller venues. He did what was it, the Riviera or Vic in Chicago or one of those, or no, the Aragon. I don't remember. But
right.
Anyways, they had him booked at First Avenue at the same time, and they even had tickets printed up because there's a ticket in here of the proof that he was booked, but he backed out for whatever reason.
I bumped into Bob Dylan, I think it was that same summer in '83. He was hanging out at the farm out west of town at the Artist Quarter, 26th and Nicollet. Hubert Sundman was playing, Howlin' Wolf's guitar player, who I ended up being good friends with because I used to book him for Famous Daves. But I came into the club, Cats from the Stars. I just did a demo tape at the Children's Theater.
Yeah.
So I went there to have a beer and, of course, see Hubert Sundman. And Tom Serwitz, another great music writer, said, "Oh, are you going to say hi to Bob?" And I said, "Bob who?" And he pointed over. So there was Bob with that great head of hair, Ray-Ban glasses, and two gorgeous women. So I went up and gave him the tape of Cats Under the Stars. But Dylan's 60th birthday party, I got a call, an email, to play in Turkey at a horse farm for some Dylan fanatics. And I considered it. Didn't quite feel like flying all the way over to Turkey to play Bob Dylan music, but I thought Minneapolis should do something for his 60th. So I got a hold of Nate, who I knew a little bit. We put together 40 acts to celebrate Dylan's birthday. On his birthday, May 23rd, 2001, between the 7th Street entry and First Avenue.
Yeah.
And because I lived in town long enough, I knew all the guys. We put together 4 of the 6 guys who played on Blood on the Tracks, including Paul Martinson, the engineer.
Yeah.
And 1,200, sold out show, 1,200 people. If you dressed as a Bob Dylan lyric or song, you got in for free.
Sure.
And I'll tell you, by the end of the night when they did Tangled Up in Blue, it felt like a spaceship floating up in the air.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Nate's still working on trying to get Dylan.
well,
That would be cool, wouldn't it? Dylan at First Avenue.
it'd be perfect.
Yeah, no, and I mean,
How about this,
if
Bill?
you're paying $99 for a ticket at XL Center to see him, wouldn't you pay $150 or whatever the difference is going to be to get him at First Avenue?
And you know what? A solo show.
Wow, yeah, I don't know if we're going to see that from Bob.
No, I know, but it's one of my
wish.
dreams.
I wish.
One of my dreams.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the great bands that played First Avenue when nobody knew who the hell they were.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of them. U2 is kind of the one go-to one. They played there twice. The first time they only had about 500 people there, which is amazing. What
year would that have been?
That was 1981. It was right when their first record, Boy, was coming out on Island Records. They were so new that they wound up playing. They didn't have enough material. The encore was they started playing the same set again. They did "I Will Follow" and one other song twice. They were actually Marty Keller, another great writer in town. He hung out with them a bit that day, and they were real good, well-behaved Irish Catholic boys. Actually, the funny thing is, the opening band was the Panic, who was Matt Wilson later of Trip Shakespeare. They opened that U2 show, and they were still in high school. U2 gave them their beer. They're still in high school because they didn't drink.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because the Wall of Power TV and Wall of Power Radio Hour works in very magical ways at times. We had a fellow named Matt Goldman, who was a stand-up comedian and was in a band in the early 80s in the Panic with Matt Wilson.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
And he went on to write for Seinfeld, and he has a great book out called Gone to Dust.
Yeah.
About Nils Shapiro, Private Eye in Edina.
Yeah.
Great book.
Yeah, yeah.
Small World.
Yeah.
So Iggy played there.
Iggy and the Stooges in 1971, and when it was the Depot era, that obviously was before they were. That would have been. I don't know at what point that was in there, but they weren't that well known.
Right.
The Litter opened that show. Some people still, even as awesome as Iggy and the Stooges were, some people who were there say that the Litter blew them off the stage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, I think about all the great shows I've seen there.
Yeah.
Patti Smith, Hank Williams III, Iggy Pop, King Sunny Ade. One of my favorite shows of all time, because it's my favorite band of all time, was the Neville Brothers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
To be able to go down and listen and dance to the Neville Brothers. I mean, I opened for the Nevilles at the Guthrie, but you could dance to the Neville Brothers.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that was the thing that kind of set it apart in the first place. First Avenue was that it had the big open dance floor, which, most of the bands in late 60s were at the Guthrie or the, what was it, the Masonic Lodge or whatever in North.
The Labor Temple.
Labor Temple, yeah. Which I guess wasn't that great of a place, but otherwise it was the auditoriums or the theaters with seats and having the hippies wanted to dance.
Well, Joe Cocker and what was it, 20-piece band opened
27.
Opened the Depot.
27 pieces. The whole entourage was 40-some people.
And part of that's on a film somewhere.
It was the Woodstock movie had just come out with Joe opening
Right.
up, and he's becoming that was his big breakthrough. So they came up with this. They wanted him to tour. He had just finished a tour, didn't want to go out on the road, and they're like, "We got to strike the iron while it's hot. You're in this Woodstock movie. Let's hit the road." So they hired a film crew.
Pack up your tie-dyes
Yeah.
and let's go.
Well, he's like, okay, fine. They let him hire the band to kind of a screw you to his management. He hired a 27-piece band.
Sure, yeah.
With Leon Russell. Leon Russell put the band together. Leon had just finished working with Bonnie and Delaney, and it was kind of a lot of some of Clapton's guys, some of the Derek and the Dominoes guys were in the band, and just an amazing lineup. Bobby Keys, who featured Stones sax man from Lubbock, he was in it, and amazing band. But what an opening night!
Right.
I mean, it's just talk about a crash course in the rock and roll business. You're trying to accommodate a 27-piece band. The behind the scenes story is Cocker. It's pretty well documented. Had some kind of shaky management at that point.
Right.
They shook down the club. They said we want more money or we're not playing.
Well, you got to cover just the per diems on 26.
Well, yeah, you can imagine. And they did. Yeah, I'm sure they weren't making
Hotel
a lot of
rooms.
money. They needed it. Yeah, and they did the standoff, and the club owner agreed to it. Alan Fingerhead agreed, and they took some money out of the safe and paid him. The show went on, but Ike and Tina tried the same thing, or Ike did, and. At that point, the owner had wised up a bit. He paid him in change, gave him a huge thing of change. This was Alan Fingerhut,
right?
Kind of screw you to Ike. When Ike and Tina showed up, they showed up late. They were supposed to play 2 sets. A lot of the bands in those nights played 2. They'd change over the crowd.
Right.
And Ike didn't want to play 2 sets, and They did pay him more, but they also held him to playing 2 sets that night.
And Bobby was playing sax.
Yeah.
And he was such a sweet cat, right?
That's
Just
what I heard.
hanging out back there.
We mentioned the footage of Cocker playing it. Bobby is key to that scene. He's got, you can tell it's at First Avenue because it was opening night, or the Depot, I'm sorry, it was the Depot. For the opening night, they brought in tons of carnations. They had, so they were throwing flowers all around. Bobby's got a carnation sticking out of his saxophone. It's really cool. That's there's a movie, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, and the scene where they're doing The Letter with the old Box Tops, Alex Chilton and the Box Tops song. That's at First Avenue. The audio isn't from the club. The audio was from the soundstage before they went on tour. I looked into this, obviously. But the footage, and it's amazing. You can't quite tell it's what we now know as First Avenue until towards the end. They pan around the room. It's unmistakable.
Right.
You totally recognize the room. And then he walks off, Cocker walks off the stage towards what later became 7th Street entry. He walks towards that door. What's cool about that photo from opening night is they're up along the wall there, and you can see there's still windows.
Right.
There's a long row of windows. If you're outside the club, you can see the outline of where the windows used to be. It's kind of this curved thing. It takes you back. I mean, it's amazing to see the old photos of the club. There's another amazing photo of what's now 7th Street entry. You know, we think of this kind of dark and dingy place, and it was the cafe for the bus depot, and it's this it's this pristine, polished cafe, you know, almost white tablecloth, and that blew me away when I saw that. It's you know, just literally night and day. It's bright and clean. And
tell us from your research what you know as a music writer and as a fan, the importance of First Avenue to Prince Rogers Nelson.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, when I started the book, I was kind of thinking, everybody knows that it's Prince's place. I want to play up everything else that's happened there.
Right.
I you know, obviously I knew Prince was going to be a big part of the book, but I was kind of on the thinking I'd downplay it. And as I researched it, I'm like, no, it's really, the club was huge to him. It was huge to his evolution. And of course, he was huge to the club. And then, so I'd already kind of made up my mind. There's a lot more to this than I thought. And then halfway through the writing of it, he died. And you know, they were showing, like CNN and everything, they're showing images of outside Paisley Park, but more often than not, they were showing the scene outside First Avenue, and that's, to me, it's just a defining moment of Minneapolis history. These 10,000 people coming together outside this club that meant so much to him. It was beautiful. It was just beautiful. He only played there. He only did 9 full shows there, which, you know, really isn't that many. All 9 were, first of all, kicked butt, of course, but they were all different, and they were all. He would always try out something. He was always, you know,
evolving.
Whether getting ready for a tour, or he had a reason to go there. And then the first show, it was still Sam's, March 1981. He had just played Saturday Night Live a couple weeks earlier, and Prince hadn't really, people in this town didn't know what to make of him at that point. That's when the love affair began. That's when things clicked, and he, you know, Bobby or Matt or one of them says, you know, that's really when he found his audience. This kind of eclectic urban audience.
You got to go to the coast for the hometown to love you the most.
Yeah, that was a part of it too. That was a part of it too. They kind of felt like he had to prove, and Saturday Night Live was what proved that you know, he really is something, and now people just rave about that show. I mean, you know, in hindsight, I'm sure everyone talks up a show, but that's one show where it genuinely seems like it was an amazing show.
It's very obvious by reading you, and I've read quite a bit of your stuff over the years, including when you wrote for The Statesman in Austin, Texas, that you're a fan first.
I'm a pretty okay journalist. I think I could do more the hard reporting and whatnot, but why would I?
Right.
You know, I mean,
you don't want to be Carl Bernstein.
I was trained. I mean, I have a journalism degree. I was trained to do that. I always, you know, okay, I can't keep doing this music critic thing forever. Well, I'm doing pretty good.
Well,
about 20 years into it now.
You and John Beam are kind of like the Woodward and Bernstein of the Twin Cities music scene.
Sure.
But tell people what it actually means, if you can. You know, I've seen, God, I don't know, I have to write them down, 60, 70, 80, 100 shows at First Avenue. Used to go down and hang out with my buddy David Carr and Tom Arnold. And there was a whole nother, there's many more stories about First Avenue that aren't in the book that I could tell, but we won't go there, other than we really enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah.
But,
Well, Tom does talk about I did talk to Tom Arnold. He's got a few in there. But,
okay, well,
yeah.
I'll get to that. I do know he wrestled Steve McClellan. Is that in there?
Yeah.
With this, you know, you've had a chance to really go through almost 50 years of history with First Avenue. As a fan, as a music writer, what is it about music that makes it so special and so important, as either individually or as us all in the group called Modern Humanity?
Yeah, no, it's just it's this art form that you know, it's so deep down, the you know, the good stuff, the people that really write the good songs, and it's, you know, me, you know, like my Texas years, you know, what do I have in common with a Texas country singer, you know?
Right.
But somehow it's universal, you know, you can identify, or a Mississippi bluesman, what do I have in common with them, you know? It's something about it transcends what our, you know, our race, our age, our background, and it really is there's this universal thing about it, and just the energy of a live performance. I mean, I still, you know, I don't really rave about a band until I see them live. You know, to me that's key. Yeah.
Great work on First Avenue, Minnesota's Mainroom. Chris Riemenschneider, this has been incredible. We have to have you on again to talk about anything. It's just
I don't think it'll be a book for a while, but
that's okay. No, I know it
sure.
takes some time.
Yeah.
But we can talk about just, you know, we'll talk about music.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. I really enjoy your writing, and I have a lot of respect for you. One ask. Let's see if the Star Tribune can start covering local shows in the review section again.
Yeah, that's tough.
Well, how about in
I wish.
City Pages?
Yeah, City Pages.
It's owned by the Star Tribune.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is a different. They kind of run out autonomously from us, but you know, if people read them, it's all about numbers these days.
Yeah.
You know, the clicks.
Clickbait.
Yeah, and if people read them, we'd certainly do a lot more of it.
Chris Riemenschneider, thank you so much, man.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Everybody, go out and get First Avenue, Minnesota's Mainroom, the perfect Minnesota Christmas present. I'm Paul Metsa saying, see you next week.